Hey y'all, hey, it's your girl Tip. I am ready for today's training. Today we're doing how to get serious about self-care in one day. I'm going to give it a few minutes to see how many people pop on, and then we'll get it moving. And remember, if you're catching this on the replay, send me a message and let me know you watched it on the replay. And then make sure you click the link in my bio to join my email list so that you can get the videos that you've missed in this series. This is a 3-part series on self-care. And so while we're waiting for some folks to join on, and when you join on, make sure you share this video because I think it's important for a lot of us. I wanted to be completely transparent about why I'm doing this series. I'm doing this series because I need it. If you've been following my Instagram page and my Instagram stories, if you're a member of the Facebook community, then you know that I went through a transition in my relationship. It's another way of saying I'm single again. And it has caused me not only the singleness, but just this time of year, it has made me very reflective on some things I say I want and how to get them. And, this time of year, we're all thinking about New Year's resolutions and goals and 5-year plans and all that kind of good stuff. And I wanted to talk about self-care because I think it's one of those things that when we're planning success, we too often don't think about. And so when we talk about lineage, I'm going to talk about that. Let me see. Ignore the rolls and such as I get up. I didn't have to get up. We're going to talk about this in just a second. It caught my eye, and then in light of some things I'm about to talk about, I think it's important for me to tell you what this is. And y'all, spirit is so funny. Spirit is so funny. Let me tell you what that is in just a second. So, for those of you who don't know me, who are catching this just by way of someone sharing, or you just happen upon it, or you're looking for me, my name is Dr. Tiffany Pogue. I am a scholar, professor, podcaster. I'm also a certified life coach who works with women in particular, but all people of color who are looking to pursue personal and professional development while maintaining a nice, healthy balance. And so my mantra is we balance brilliance through cultural excellence. And so today's topic is how to get serious about self-care in one day. All right. If you are new to this series, know that I have done or am doing a 3-part series on radical self-care. Last Sunday, we did 5 principles of African-centered self-care. If you missed it and you want to be a part of that, make sure you join my email list at the link in my bio so that you can get access to last week's video. Today, we're talking about how we can get serious about self-care in one day. And then next Sunday, I'm going to talk about 6 different types of self-care. So next week, I'm actually going to give you some steps and some strategies to implement self-care into your life as part of a regimen. But today, we're going to talk about why that regimen is necessary. So again, if you make sure your notifications for this page are turned on so you get your reminder for next Sunday, or join the mailing list so that you can get the replays. So y'all know I'm an educator, and I wanted to think about what the objective for today would be. And so the objective today is by the end of today, not just the end of this training, but by the end of today, I want you to be more likely to implement and commit to a regular regimen of self-care, radical self-care. All right. And so that's my objective. Also for myself, so that by the end of today, I am more likely to commit to a regimen of radical self-care. All right. Let me give you a definition for self-care. So here's where the learning starts. If you have a pad and a piece of paper or a journal or something of that sort, here's where you want to start writing down. I'm going to give you a definition for a regimen because some of us say we practice self-care, but I don't think we have made it a regimen. And that's what we're talking about today. So I want to give you a definition to think more deeply about why we do what we do and how we do it. So if you are writing, write down that a regimen is, this is according to dictionary.com. It is a prescribed course. You see me reading my notes. It is a prescribed course or way of life that promotes or restores health. Let me give it to you again. A regimen is a prescribed course or way of life that promotes or restores health. And so that's what we're talking about today. Radical self-care as a regimen, and why today you need to be committed to it. We're going to get you going and serious about it in just this conversation and some homework I got for you later. You're going to see me looking down at my notes because I got a lot of stuff and I want to make sure I cover it all. Because again, today and this whole series is very personal for me. I just had a birthday in November. We're ending a decade. I ended a 2-year relationship. And so as I leave one season and go into another, I want to be very clear on where I'm going. And that's why I've made these notes for myself and I want to share them just because, that's what I do. If you've ever taken the DISC assessment, then I'm a high I, high S. I like to support people and I like people. So if I'm going through a struggle, I feel like other people might. And so let's share strategies for helping each other. So let's just jump right in. So we're talking about, again, today to implement a regimen for radical self-care. So let's define radical self-care. What do we mean when we say radical self-care? We know what self-care is, right? It tends to be co-opted by the hippy-dippy new age people to mean bubble baths and crystals and incense and Palo Santo and all this kind of stuff. And that may be part of, but that's not the heart of it. Let's use Audre Lorde because, I love to read. As you can see, Audre Lorde is one of my favorites. And so according to Audre Lorde, I'm reading because I don't want to miss it. According to Audre Lorde, radical self-care is a means towards self-preservation. So you might want to write that down. Radical self-care is a means towards self-preservation. If you want to be here, you need to be practicing some radical self-care. All right? Let's read a quote from Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde says, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare." I'll read it again for you because it's that deep. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. All right? So let's just jump right in, okay? All right. In order to get serious about anything, any of us who've ever had a life coach or a personal development facilitation or professional development workshop, usually the facilitators, the trainers tell us that we got to get clear on our why. The coaches always tell us we got to get clear on our why. And so as I thought about why someone needs to be committed to radical self-care as a regimen, I came up with 2 types. Now, again, this is Tiffany. This is Tiffany journaling and being transparent and giving Tiffany what she needs. I just think it might help someone else. And so I have broken down my why for why we need to be engaged in radical self-care into 2 different types, 2 different pots, if you will. The first one is political. All right, so we're going to jump into the political why. Again, Audre Lorde is telling us it's a political act of warfare, right? And so we're going to engage it as such. So now is definitely the time to have your journals ready to go. We're going to go through the political way first. And when I think about politics and what it means to be a woman of color, a Black woman in particular, in a racist, sexist, homophobic, capitalist, excessive capitalist society, then the political machinations that we are up against seem almost insurmountable. And so I thought originally that the political why was going to be more difficult to face. But as I went through the training, I realized that the other kind of why is actually the more difficult of the 2. It might not seem like it, but keep going with me, all right? So let's go through the political why. Given the current climate in the United States and globally, it looks like white supremacy is winning. everywhere. I mean, land is being taken, babies are being taken, families are being torn asunder, people are being exploited, land is being, just ravaged, nature is being ravaged. And so it's easy to feel like we are under attack, because quite frankly, we are. I think most people of color, if we are critical about our histories, if we interrogate our histories, then we know that our way of being in this world has been under a constant state of attack since we have encountered whiteness. Now, I don't mean white people, I mean the system of whiteness, right? That's different than individual white people. But the system of whiteness has sought to destroy us ever since it encountered us. And we've been battling that since we've encountered whiteness. And that westernization, that Western mindset that whiteness uses as a tool causes us to feel a certain kind of way about ourselves and other people that look like us. And it's quite stressful. If we are honest with ourselves, particularly Black women, then we create these cultural trends and these beauty trends just of our own choosing. Locks, for example. I don't call them dreadlocks, but locks, for example, were something that were vilified and seen as nasty and dirty and all these kind of things. And now you've got people wearing faux locks, right? So we see culture that we've been a part of for millennia being appropriated and sold back to us. That shit is stressful. It's stressful to me. As much as I like to see trends towards natural hair, it bothers me that a sister would rather go to a salon and get some faux locks than actually going through the process of locking, right? You want it. That's an aside. There was a time in the 90s where funky nails like this were, 80s and 90s, were only seen as ghetto and ratchet and things like that. And now I'm in the academy and other professors have nails like me, and entrepreneurs like King Ashley Ann and Judy. They all, it's so commonplace now, right? So that the things we create, the things that we inherently embrace are seen as ghetto, ratchet, unacceptable, lacking sophistication and class, etc., are eventually co-opted by a particular population, repackaged and presented back to us as desirable. That shit is stressful. It's incredibly stressful. It consumes us. The Kardashians are wonderful at it. They literally consume Black culture. Black woman created culture. They consume it and sell it back to people. They're billionaires off of a culture that doesn't belong to them. That's stressful to me as a Black woman. I carry that as a Black woman. I'm getting ahead of myself. Third, our deities and our access to our lineage have literally been attacked if our families have not been wholesale stripped from them. So our ancestors' way of understanding God and of working with spirit and of even knowing your great-great-great-grandfather's name, all those things have been stripped from us in such a way that it lessens our ability to plug directly into a power source that's readily available to us. That's like this machination of white supremacist westernization has just taken us and has tried to do everything it can to weaken our power and our stronghold in our own humanity. And it can kill us, like the stress from that. Even if we're not thinking about it constantly, which many of us aren't thinking about, it's still having an effect. What does it mean as a Black woman to see your sisters talked about one way when they do a thing and to see other people celebrate it when they do that thing? Like, that has an effect on us eventually. The other thing is, it's what do you do? Y'all, the constant images of brutality against Black and brown flesh is having a tremendous effect on our well-being. So when you turn on the news and you see a young brother die from the flu in a cage, that has an effect on you. When you see brothers and sisters shot down in the streets for simply being Black, that has an effect on you. When you see, the other day, a brother sent me a video of a man who appeared to have some developmental delays being abused by a police officer. Those things have an effect on us. And so when Audre Lorde says that self-care is an act of political warfare, what she is saying is it is obvious that the system that we exist in is seeking to destroy us at every turn. It's attacking our bodies. It's attacking our way of life. It's attacking our identity. It's attacking our belief systems. It's attacking our health care. All of that stuff. Then anything I do to resist that is an act of self-care. And that's what we mean by the political why. When I take care of myself, I am making it more difficult for that machine of white supremacist patriarchy, excessive capitalism, et cetera, I'm preventing that from taking me out as easily as it could. I am resisting it through my self-care. It is an act of political warfare. That's what Audre Lorde is saying. So let's make it a little bit more real. How is it seeking to destroy us? It's seeking to destroy us through stress. What kind of stressors? Let me just give you a quick list, and I want you to think about this. Stress has been linked to having low energy, being tired all the time. It's linked to headaches. It's linked to digestive system discomfort, so things like constipation and or diarrhea. It's linked to insomnia. It's linked even to forgetfulness. Now, think about that list and think about how normalized those conditions are for you. It's not unusual for me to have a tummy ache once or twice a week. It's definitely not unusual for me to have a headache at the end of the day. It's not unusual for me to have some days where my mind is racing and I just can't think. The reality is stress has become so normalized in our lives. We're like fish swimming in water and we don't even notice it anymore. We don't realize having headaches that often is a marker of unwellness. Do you understand what I'm saying? That not being able to sleep is tied to stress. That I can't find my keys in the morning. Every morning I'm... And so we must do what we have to do to resist these kinds of things, right? This is what Audre Lorde meant by radical self-care is a political act. Because, let's go further. Now, those little seemingly insignificant characteristics of living a stressful life compound. Like daily, it's like compounding interest, right? Every day, it's piling on. Every day is every time I see, every time I see the Kardashians on TV, every time the NFL tries to play Kaepernick, every time somebody sends me an inbox of a brother or sister being just completely mistreated by the police, anytime I read these stats about the disproportionate, you know what I'm saying. The shit is just adding up. It's adding up over and over and over again. That adding up, the adding up of stress has been linked to depression, anxiety, and personality disorders. Our mental health is literally threatened. And we already know that in the Black community, unfortunately, many of us won't seek out mental health care. Seeking out mental health care in an environment where we know stress is trying to kill us is an act of political warfare. It should be part of our why. Radical self-care should include you taking care of your mental health and being clear and transparent about the need to take care of mental health so that other people are released and free to take care of their mental health. That's a part of radical self-care. Get you a therapist, chick. Brother, get you a therapist. Now, coaches, a life coach like myself, we're no substitute for a mental health professional. But if you want to start with us because you don't know where else to go, start with something. Right? Start with something. But depression, anxiety, and personality, I'm not saying all of it comes from stress, but stress has been linked to cases of depression, anxiety, and personality disorders. Our mental health is affected by our lack of radical self-care. Heart disease, high blood pressure, heart attacks, and strokes are also linked to stress. Guess who has high blood pressure issues now? I never had them in my life until grad school. I started learning more and more about the context that I live in. And that stress adds up. And because I am developing this alongside you, because many of us have no disciplined radical self-care regimen, we're not combating the stressors. Like, we're just letting them consume us, and we're not fighting back. Part of our why has to be fighting back against a system that wants to consume our flesh, that wants to make our flesh a commodity and consume it. Because once you know that, see, James Baldwin said, to be black in this country and to be relatively aware is to be in a constant state of rage. It's a constant stressor to be a person of color paying attention right now. So we have to resist the effects that has on our mental and physical and spiritual health. So let that be part of your political why. Obesity and eating disorders are linked to it. I am an emotional eater. I have gained probably 20, 30 pounds in the last 2 years. Completely off stress. And something else I'm going to talk about in just a second. Because I'm an emotional eater. When I'm lonely, when I'm angry, when I'm sad, sweet, salt and bread. That's a struggle I have. I've given it a name now. So that's one of the, when we talk about the self-care 6 types, I've given it a name. Naming is extremely important. Remember last week when we talked about radical self-care, African-centered principles of self-care, we talked about the power of the word. Giving it a name matters, right? And now I know that I'm an emotional eater, and I turn towards these things because of stress. Skin issues and hair loss. So when we making fun of each other's edges, it's not all because we have alopecia, and it's not all because we're wearing units or head wraps every day. Some of it is just plain stress. I have been more deliberately taking care of my skin. I'm happy with the results, right? But I also have to realize that what I'm washing it with and the serums I'm using and essences and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter if from the inside out, I'm not caring for it. All right, so that's part of my political why. These things, with the exception of maybe the hair loss, these things can lead to death. Audre Lorde died from cancer. A lot of my, if you've ever done like a professional development workshop with me about being a Black woman scholar, I talk about one of the things that is unfortunately relatively common is that these Black women scholar activists tend to die relatively early. They love us that much. They stress about us that much. We're going to get there in just a minute, but that's what Audre Lorde, I believe, was telling us when she said, taking care of myself is an act of political warfare. She wrote that when she was sick. We can't let it get that far, right? Realize that now, while we have a chance to do the pivot, right? The pivot is always possible, so that we can come back. We got to balance our brilliance to this cultural excellence. And Audre Lorde gave us the key, that taking care of our physical selves, taking care of ourself is a part of how we resist, right? We want to be revolutionary this. We want to throw up the black power fish. You want to wear the red, black, and green. You want the Africa tattoo. You want the natural hair. You want the head wraps. You want all that stuff. Self-care is a part of how we resist. Taking care of ourselves is part of how we resist. All right. So let's move into the other why. Now, remember I told you when I did this, I initially thought that the political why was going to be the more difficult. The sacred why was really the one that I'm struggling with. The sacred why. And so here's another thing for you to write down. I want you to write down the sentence. I am worthy of care. And then I want you to sit with it a minute and ask yourself, how does that make you feel to write that? How does it make you feel to think that? And if I'm honest with myself, when I say that sentence, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, okay, But there's a part of me that's a little convicted and feels uncomfortable. I'm worthy of care? I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. Let me be transparent and clear. There are a lot of things that I say that 2019 has shown me I don't really mean. And so if you had asked me a couple of weeks ago, do you think you're worthy of love and respect and care? I would have said yes with my mouth, but my actions betray otherwise. And that's the part, the 29th, that's Zora Neale Hurston. I guess today is a day of quotes. Zora Neale Hurston says, there are years to ask questions and there are years to answer. I think I had been asking questions and 2019 was the answer. That you can say you deserve love. It's a whole nother thing to treat yourself as if you deserve love. Like, I can say I deserve love and then accept a relationship where there is none. You see how that doesn't... One thing betrays my truth. I can say that my truth is that I believe I'm deserving of care. I can say that and I can pretend that's my truth. But if my daily actions with Tiffany don't betray that, then my lived life is what is really my truth. And my real truth is that Tiffany has not loved Tiffany in 2019 nearly enough. Hell, and since 1973, the year I was born, I don't think I've loved Tiffany enough. And 2019 was the year that gave me that answer. I'm hoping 2019 is your answer year too, so that we can move into 2020 in a new way. So let me just be more clear about what I mean. I can say Tiffany deserves to be healthy and then have crystals for breakfast. I could say Tiffany deserves to be healthy and to get off blood pressure medication and skip the gym for months at a time. I can say Tiffany is an extremely spiritual being who hasn't lit a candle for her ancestors in about 4 or 5 months. I'm being completely transparent with you today. I can tell you Tiffany knows. I know that I know that I know that I know. You saw what just happened. I looked up above my head and this book was there. I know. I'm talking about this in just a second. I know that my ancestors will fix a lot of this shit for me. I know that here. Have I lived it? And so this is what I mean by the sacred why is often much more difficult. I can know how to do the things that I need to do. It does not matter if I don't prioritize myself like I love myself. The relationship I just got out of, we were both in the field of education. Both of us wanting to move more closely on the consulting training side. I built his speaker kit. I built his pitch deck. I designed his trainings and workshops. I redid his website. I created his Twitter page. I refined his LinkedIn page. Have I done those 6 things for myself? I don't have a pitch deck. I don't have a speaker kit. I don't have a proposal to send out. I don't have a list of my workshops. I do have Twitter in my logo. But you understand what I'm saying? That I thought me doing that for him was securing my future. But I wasn't doing it for myself because I prioritized his need over mine. And so now that he's gone, he's got the stuff that I don't have. See, part of radical self-care is starting to understand and embrace the fact that you deserve to be your own priority. And this system that we live within has convinced way too many of us that, y'all, this is getting heavy. It has convinced way too many of us that our worth and our value is tied to our ability to serve other people, and we never ever think about being of service to self. I mean, it's part of the beast, right? The beast set up that conditioning so that black women believe we are only worthy when we're nurturing somebody else. We're only worthy when we're serving other people. But I'm here to tell you, you are worthy all by yourself, 10 toes down on this earth. Nothing changing, you are worthy of veneration. Let me read to you what the definition for sacred is. Sacred means that you are connected with God and therefore worthy of veneration. Most of us, unless you're just a plain out atheist, most of us realize that in some way, form, or fashion, we are part of the Creator. Either we're made in its image, or it's straight consubstantiation, we're all made of Ache, or the same thing that it's made out of, and therefore part of it. If I'm linked to God in that way, that means I'm deserving of self-care because I want to venerate the Creator that took an interest in creating me. I'll tell you another. So I can pick them, Lord Jesus. I can pick them. So my ex, not the most recent one, another one, staunch alcoholic. And every time I would have a reading, Oshun would fuss at me. I'm a daughter of Oshun. Oshun would fuss at me. Most of us have heard of Oshun. Oshun is the Yoruba Lukumi deity of female beauty, empowerment, power, sexuality. Here's the part people miss. She is the deity of self-reflection. And Oshun put that mirror in your face every day until you, not just your physical beauty, until you can see yourself. And I think that's why I kept having these kind of relationships. And finally, I think I get it, Oshun. I think I got it. And I thought she was angry with me because of the people I was choosing. Right? I am so grateful today that I get it now. The mirror is there and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm trying to figure out what all this is about. And I get it. And what she wasn't angry because of the men I was choosing. Like she wanted me to leave them. She always said in the reading I had to leave these people, right? She wasn't angry because of who they were. She was angry because I was allowing myself to be treated a certain kind of way. See, when you begin to understand you are, some of you, the Oshun thing is too far, right? I said her name, I gave her glory. Let's make it more real for many of us. You exist in a lineage of excellence. Imagine your lineage like a chain of excellence. You are a link in the middle of that chain. So before you were born, generations of love, decisions, accidents, mistakes, sacrifices, anger, resentment, forgiveness, all of that poured into making you who you are and giving you the advantages you have in this life. Every one of us has a talent that we can use in a way that can't nobody else touch, right? That's a gift of lineage. That we are born into a lineage of excellence. When I sit and think, most of the women in my family on my mother's side are educators. Like I'm born into a line. How dare I not be a good educator? I'm born into a lineage of excellence. That's what we do. On my mother's side, my sister, my mother was once one. My aunts, my cousins, right? I'm born into a lineage of excellence that looks like education and caring for children, for working with the youth. That's what we do. How dare I not be good at it? Like I'm born into that lineage. Okay, that's easy to accept, right? So you probably have been born into some kind of lineage, and if you think about it, you'll be able to say, yeah, that's what our family does. That's what we're known for. That's what we do, right? Not only have you inherited that talent, remember that energy isn't created nor destroyed. And the love that poured into each one of those relationships that eventually added up to you, you are responsible for making sure that same love continues after you. That you are not a weak link in that chain, but you are a full, excellent link in the chain, honoring those people who poured into you by pouring into the descendants of them that come behind you. And you can't do it if you're not here. I'm talking good and ain't nobody talking bad. Do you understand what I'm saying? That you are part of a lineage of excellence. And if you can't self-care for any other reason right now hopefully you get to the place where you see yourself as sacred and deserving. But until you get there, understand that you are part of this check. Let me tell you why this is so. All right. So this is, I don't even know like what the family. All I know is this is Walter Pogue. Walter Pogue was a couple of generations back. He was a preacher. Can you see this? Who typed out sermons and biblical lessons and things like that and had them in his journal. Right? My father is a Baptist minister. We're sharing this office right now because some of you know I moved home. We're sharing this office right now. That's what I mean by lineage of excellence. That's what I come from. How dare I not be in touch with my spiritual self? How dare I not be writing and recording for generations behind? I can read how he felt about spirit. He left that. That's a legacy of excellence. How dare I not be here to tell my nephews what that is? To show them. The janitor at my nephew's school calls him deacon. I said all that to say there is work, spiritual work. It might not feel like spiritual work, but there is work for you to do here, even in that work, even if that work just takes the form of you practicing radical self-care and some young child looking at you and seeing what it really looks like to love oneself. That might be your only purpose on this earth, and it's still worth you preserving. If we believe we are made in the image of God, do we believe that God is worthy of respect? And if we believe that, do we treat ourselves like we know that? Let me tell you, as I was preparing for today's lesson, I want to read this sentence to you because it was one of those instances where I think Spirit was communicating to me. I wrote down, the reality is you have not developed, nor have you stuck to a regimen of radical self-care simply because you haven't prioritized yourself yet. See, just like I did in that relationship with the most recent ex, I do, if someone asks me to design a course, if somebody says, can you brainstorm with me? Can you talk to me about this issue? Can you do that? I always try to find a way to make a yes. When I get up in the morning, I'm like, I should go to the gym. I always find a way to make that a no. That's not radical self-care. The same grace and mercies I would extend to an outsider, I have to start delivering it to myself. I have to. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So even if you want to be in service to others, you can't be in full service to others if you're not in full service to yourself. All right. So I have some homework for you. You ready? Here's your homework. Number 1. It's a 7-day process. Okay? Every night, get in bed, get comfortable, get your journal or a piece of paper, whatever you have. I don't want you to use a phone. I want you to write, right? Write down, I am sacred. 7 times in a row. And then write about how that makes you feel. How that process makes you feel. Do that for 7 days straight. So tonight, get in bed, write down the sentence, I am sacred, 7 times. All right? And then right under that 7 times, write how that process made you feel. And do that every day until we meet again next Sunday. And then tell me how you feel. So that's homework number 1. Homework point number 2 is between now and next Sunday, if you can. Now, if you can't, I understand it. We'll work on that in the future. But if you can, between now and next Sunday, I want you to find out your numbers. Whatever numbers you've been running from. You might be running from your credit score. You might be running from your weight. I don't know how much I weigh. I'm going to weigh myself this week. I know what my blood pressure numbers are. I'm not happy with that. I know what my A1C number is. I'm not happy with that. But I want us to know what our numbers are. Whatever it is we've been running from knowing, I want you to find that out. So that's homework number 2. Homework number 3, I want you to identify at least one other woman that you can have a conversation with. That's all I want you to do. I don't want you to map out anything with her. I don't want her to be your accountability partner. She might be. That's not what... All the assignment is for you to talk to another woman about what it means to have a radical self-care regimen. That's all. I just want to share the information. Just have a conversation. When you tuned in last week, or if you're getting the replay on the 5 principles of African self-care, one of them was community. You cannot do this by yourself. And so all I'm asking you to do is to create that initial connection. Have an initial conversation with somebody about what it means to practice radical self-care. And to have a regimen of radical self-care. Remember, a regimen is a way of life. Okay. And your last piece of homework, Lord, I got 1, 2, 3, 3. So it's 4 pieces of homework. 1, 2, 3, 4. So number 4 is to create at least 3 rituals that you can begin to incorporate into your daily life to structure out a self-care regimen. What do I mean by that? What are 3, and I want you to focus right now. We're not eliminating anything. So I don't want you to say, I'm not going to drink sodas. I don't want you to cut out anything. We are adding to. All right. So what are 3 things you can begin doing daily? So you got to commit to it. 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Commit to adding just 3 things to your daily life that become the foundation of your self-care regimen. Let me give you some examples. You're going to be journaling for 7 days, so you can make that a part of your daily self-care regimen, that you, before bed, journal, right? 1 or 2 sentences. Doesn't have to be pages and pages. It could be 1 or 2 sentences of how your day went, how you felt, all right? That could be one thing you could add. You could add a stretch daily. Now, I'm not even talking about a full yoga flow. I'm talking about just get up and stretch good. You ever watch animals, like dogs and cats, when they get up from a nap? They do a full-out flow. Just all over, just stretching back and forth. And, you know, that might be something you add. It's just being conscious about waking your muscles up in the morning. Number 3, develop a mantra. My new mantra is, I balance brilliance through cultural excellence. Right? So create something that you can say. I'm now going to say that every morning in the mirror. I balance brilliance through cultural excellence. That's what I do. Tell them to told you. Text a friend daily. So one of the things that has been hard for me with this relationship transition thing is I was used to getting texts from him throughout the day, and I realized that I had stopped texting my other friends because all my attention was on him. He was the one that's not true. My friends that are the most true, I'm not telling them I love them as often as I should and all that kind of thing. So maybe, and it doesn't have to be the same friend. Maybe you rotate through your call list and send a nice text. Hey, good morning. You were on my mind. I just was thinking about you. Right? Think about how that feels to get those texts, and then let's do it for other people. So those are just 4 ideas. You don't have to have those ideas, but I do want you to start thinking about what your self-care regimen looks like. What system will you use to make sure your radical self-care is indeed in the form of a regimen? I think if you think about your political and sacred whys, you can get there. If you have any questions, comments, complaints, send them to Dr. Tip at tellemtiptoldyou.com. I've enjoyed you, and I hope that you've enjoyed this training. See you next week.